Good morning, everybody. I welcome all the students to this class. Today's session, the topic is chronic liver diseases. So, last time we had dealt with the normal introduction to liver and then cirrhosis when we were dealing with the topic of the liver. So, continuing with that particular session, so we move on to various other chronic liver diseases. Okay. So, coming on there. Inherited chronic liver disorders. So, what are all these? So, basically, Wilson's disease, hemochromatosis, alpha 1 antitrypsin deficiency, the proper inherited chronic liver disorders. And then, even the Ray's syndrome can be included under this. Okay. So, these could be a 3 marks question for you in the exams. So, moving on to the first entity among these, Wilson's disease. Coming to Wilson's disease, what is the pathogenesis here? A rare treatable genetic disorder of copper metabolism. There is an abnormal accumulation of copper in the hepatocytes. This is a metabolic disorder affecting basal ganglia, eyes and kidney. The defect is in the ceruloplasmin which carries the copper. Okay. So this serum ceruloplasmin and the copper are both low. So this is one other one. So the diagnosis made by seeing neurological, psychiatric, various ailments here. Even hepatitis, cirrhosis you can come across in the young people here. So one of the important diagnostic thing that you can come across during examination of the patient's eye, where you see the deposits of the copper as brown deposits around the cornea, that is a corneal ring, outer ring is formed, that is called as the Kayser-Fleischer ring. So this Kayser-Fleischer ring can be seen there. So fatty change in the liver, hepatocytes, so focal necrosis, so it could lead to acute hepatitis or chronic hepatitis, massive liver necrosis. So this copper can be identified by special stains like rhodamine stain or Orsin stain. So these KF rings are the hallmarks. See there, green to brown deposits of copper in descent membrane in limbus of cornea. So here you can see the outer part of this particular cornea showing this. So this is again the same. So here again the outer part of this particular cornea. Now coming to the next one, next important 3 marks question that can be asked for you in the exams, hemochromatosis. So what is this? This is nothing but excessive absorption and deposition of the iron in various organs of your body. Now which are the organs involved commonly? The liver, the heart, the pancreas. In pancreas it could cause pancreatic fibrosis. Kidneys, skin, where it's called as bronze diabetes. Joint synovium, deposition of this particular iron there. So primary cause is unknown. Secondary iron overloads could be seen in anemias, frequent infusion with the blood in anemias, cirrhosis, dietary. So all this. So there could be skin hyperpigmentation. The patient might come to your clinic with lethargy, weakness, seen in people around 40 to 60 years age group. And even the this particular thing could be associated with the diabetes and arthropathy. So primary defect in the intestinal absorption of dietary iron, leading to net accumulation of 0.5 to 1 gram every year. In a single year 1 gram is being accumulated in different organs of your body. The disease manifests itself typically after 20 grams of storage iron has accumulated. Could be takes prolonged number of years for accumulation of such a huge amount, that is 20 grams. See that 1 gram per year, so it could take 15 to 20 years for accumulation of such massive amounts of iron. So lipid peroxidation mechanism is involved here. leading to collagen formation. Direct iron interaction with the DNA of the cell. Golden yellow hemosiderin granules in hepatocyte cytoplasm are being exhibited here. So the stain, this particular granules, they stain blue with Prussian blue stain. So there is every risk of this hemochromatosis could lead to HCC, hepatocellular carcinomas. So coming to the another one, that is inherited liver chronic disorder, the diseases, that is one alpha 1 antitrypsin deficiency. So this is basically autosomal recessive disorder. There is low serum protease inhibitor. Okay, so commonly seen in teenagers and adults. A progressive liver disease with pulmonary manifestations. So alpha 1 trypsin is a potent protease inhibitor found in the serum, body fluids and tissues. So it is synthesized by the liver to protect from tissue injury resulting from protease like trypsin. So what do you see basically here? So this deficiency leads to pulmonary emphysema, a clinical complication here. That's a basic important findings. So PAS stain, periodic acid shift stain, there could be red cytoplasmic granules being visualized. Round cytoplasmic globular inclusion. So in the cytoplasm there are red globular inclusions. The Mallory bodies can be seen here, another cytoplasmic inclusions that we will come across in the next slides, the Mallory bodies. It could lead to hepatitis and even the cirrhosis. Ray syndrome. So brief few lines that you should be aware of this particular entity is, so this is an illness seen in the pediatric age group. Okay. So usually associated with aspirin consumption in children with chickenpox infection or during any treatment of the flu, basic flu. So there could be, the patient could have nausea, vomiting, drowsiness, belly pain. So on biopsy there could be fatty infiltration, so elevated liver enzymes, ammonia levels. So only happens in kids less than 15 years old. So basically the involvement is due to aspirin use during the treatment of any flu that the patient suffers from. So the liver becomes inflamed, destroyed. See there, it kills about half of the kids who get this particular disease. So very high mortality rate there. So avoid aspirin, okay? So you can use acetaminophen and the ibuprofen drugs on such patients, avoiding the consumption of aspirin. Yes, this is a pinch of, with a pinch of humor, we'll move on to next topic, alcoholic liver disease. So alcoholism, one of the social evils that our society faces nowadays. It has spoiled so many families, especially not only the downtrodden or low economic status families, but even the high economic status families. We have come across so many doctors, some of our colleagues who have succumbed to such disease with chronic addiction to liver. So this is one of the very dangerous one. So most individuals with liver disease will have to drink this particular alcohol over a prolonged period of time. Okay, maybe 30 grams or more than 30 grams up to 60 grams a day could lead to serious chronic liver diseases. Some even mention 160 grams per day for an average of 8 years to cause severe diseases. So drinking pattern is really important here. How are they? Are they continuous drinkers on a day in day off daily basis, or just a bingy drinkers? What is this bingy drinkers? This is nothing but a occasional drinkers who have a huge bouts of alcohol on a single day or in a single sitting. They just want to have hangover and enjoy and have the fun on that particular day, and suddenly they abstain from that for coming days. So they are not chronic drinkers actually, these bingy drinkers. Say for example 4-5 drinks in just 2-3 hours. So they just want to enjoy and have fun on that, and then suddenly abstain from drinking for so many days. So in such people, it is okay, fine. But what about continuous drinking? So that's where alcoholic liver disease comes into play. Gender, so it's not limited to males or females nowadays. Both can get exposed to the side effects of this particular ethanol consumption. So it's even increasing in women. Genetics. Alcoholism is more common in monozygotic than dizygotic twins. Okay. Nutrition. So it all basically depends upon even the good nutrition. So poor nutrition will suffer from cirrhotic liver very fast, at faster pace. So given a choline deficient diet are more likely to develop alcohol liver diseases. So this is again schematic diagram wherein alcohol consumption, the product acetaldehyde leads and adducts causing the alcohol liver diseases. So gut permeability, endotoxin production, then Kupffer cells comes into play, release of tumor necrosis, factor alpha interleukins acting on causing inflammation in the liver. So genetic susceptibility, so all these flowcharts. And then there could be oxidative stress, increase on lipid peroxidation, so low glutathione. So these flowcharts are really important in your exams, finally leading to genetic susceptibility and causing alcoholic liver disease. So clinical syndromes of alcoholic liver disease: fatty liver, asymptomatic abnormal liver biochemistry, alcoholic hepatitis it can cause, wherein there is jaundice, malnutrition, hepatomegaly, features of portal hypertension, then leading to cirrhosis, wherein there is stigmata of chronic liver disease, ascites, varices, encephalopathy, hepatic coma, and even the hepatocellular carcinoma, the hepatomas. So, alcoholic hepatitis. So, it's an acute or chronic illness involving the liver with necrosis, inflammation, and scarring. So 95% develop a fatty liver, which is a reversible process. So there could be encephalopathy and death. So even there could be a progression to cirrhosis within 6 months. See that frequent repeated hepatitis could lead to cirrhosis. So 50% of those abstaining from for 6 months recover completely. So who abstain from alcohol? In those population, 50% of them can recover back. So symptoms: anorexia, nausea, vomiting, abdominal pain, fever, weight loss, jaundice, diarrhea. So all this. So damage to liver. So there could be hepatic insufficiency, coma, jaundice, ascites, ankle edema. So all this: spider navy, alopecia, gynecomastia, palmar erythema, testicular atrophy. So all these are the symptoms or the signs that you can see in patients with alcoholic liver disease. Could be hepatitis. So jaundice, spider angiomas, palmar erythemas, clubbing of fingers, all this again same story there. Edema, caput medusae, so dark urine, so all this stuff. So what basically happens here? Alcoholic hepatitis, what happens there? Hepatocyte swelling, necrosis, ballooning degeneration with accumulation of fat, water and proteins. Mallory bodies, so basically what are these? Eosinophilic cytoplasmic inclusions in degenerating hepatocyte. A Viva question for you. The Mallory bodies, or a 3 marks question. Okay? Eosinophilic cytoplasmic inclusions. So neutrophilic reaction. So there could be satellitosis. There could be accumulation of these particular neutrophils around a hepatocyte. There could be fibrosis, that is the last stage, last step in a case of alcoholic liver disease. So this is a microscopic view here for this particular ballooning degeneration. So Mallory bodies, that is eosinophilic inclusions in the cytoplasm of these particular hepatocytes. So alcoholic effects, increased lipid biosynthesis. So there could be impaired assembly and secretion of lipoproteins leading to fatty liver, impaired hepatic methionine catabolism causing oxidative injury, induction of cytochrome P450. So all these steps are important here in alcoholic liver disease. So there could be impaired microtubular mitochondrial function. So the acetaldehyde production causing lipid peroxidation, which disrupt cytoskeletal membrane of these particular hepatocytes, become a major caloric source, this alcohol, and the patient doesn't eat after a huge gulp of this alcohol. So that causes vitamin deficiencies. Lead to chronic gastritis, intestinal mucosal damage, and pancreatitis. So there could be impaired digestive function. Induce release of bacterial endotoxin into portal circulation, that is causing again liver inflammation. Induce release of endothelins. So all this leading to regional hypoxia. So those are some pictures there, CT scan findings, the jaundice in a patient of alcoholic hepatitis. So secondary hepatic steatosis, macrovesicular steatosis in hepatitis C, Wilson's disease, lipodystrophy, starvation, all these drugs. So there is macro. This is microvesicular steatosis in Reye syndrome, medications, acute fatty liver, HELLP syndrome, inborn errors of metabolism. Well, now moving on to another Viva question that can be asked commonly, or could be a 3 marks question. That's rare for this. So non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, or NAFL also called. There is evidence of hepatic steatosis either by imaging or by histology. There are no causes of secondary hepatic fat accumulation such as significant alcohol consumption. So there is no consumption. Use of steatogenic medications. So histologically it is characterized into two types: non-alcoholic fatty liver, non-alcoholic steatohepatitis, that is NASH. So NAFL, evidence of hepatic steatosis could be seen in these cases. There is accumulation with no evidence of hepatocellular injury in the form of ballooning, degeneration of the hepatocytes. So coming to NASH, non-alcoholic steatohepatitis, presence of hepatic steatosis and inflammation with hepatocyte injury, finally leading to fibrosis. So genetic variation in PNPLA3 confers susceptibility to NASH. Okay, so this is a gene susceptibility leading to non-alcoholic fatty liver. See, some people doesn't have any habits of alcohol consumption, but on your ultrasonography they'll find that it's a fatty liver. So how you attribute? So this is the way how you attribute. There could be genetic susceptibility in few of the cases. Leave apart about the basic alcohol consumption. Okay, moving on to risk factors. So obesity, type 2 diabetes mellitus, dyslipidemia, metabolic syndromes, polycystic ovary syndromes, hypothyroidism, obstructive sleep apnea, hypopituitarism, hypogonadism, pancreatoduodenal resections. So all these in non-alcoholic liver diseases. So what happens basically here? See this is a beautiful diagram there, schematic diagram, causing increased lipogenesis due to oxidation. First step, insulin resistant adipose tissue, compensated steatosis, leading to again steatohepatitis. So with increased hepatic insulin resistance leading to increased plasma glucose levels, leading to steatohepatitis, finally causing fibrosis. So this is a very beautiful diagram wherein there is a expressions of this increased insulin secretion leading to finally the lipogenesis. Multi-hit hypothesis. So various levels of action. Insulin resistance causing metabolic syndrome. So those are all reversible there. Activation and interaction in between. The cytokines, the adipokines, the oxidative stress. So normal liver leading to steatosis, leading to NASH, leading to fibrosis. This is a beautiful diagram that you have to put this flowchart in the exam when asked. So this is another schematic diagram where in healthy liver progressing to non-alcoholic fatty liver disease NAFLD leading to NASH, that is non-alcoholic steatohepatitis. So fatty liver progressing to hepatitis leading to cirrhosis, leading to hepatocellular carcinoma, also called as hepatoma, leading to death. So this is again the survival rates in cases of NASH and alcoholic steatohepatitis. So 5-year survival, 10-year survival are always better in NASH than ASH, that is non-alcoholic steatohepatitis are always having better survival rates when it compared to alcoholic steatohepatitis. So mortality again there. So liver failure, sepsis, variceal hemorrhage, HCC, cardiovascular diseases, all these complications contribute for the mortality in the patient. So imaging techniques here confirming fat accumulation in the liver. So USG findings there. So the diagnostic tests that you have to resort to, gold standard as always, the biopsy, the histopathological study. Okay, so that's important. And then liver enzymes, AST, ALT. Then imaging, ultrasonography, MRI, CT scan. So all these contribute for the assessment of presence of these particular diseases. So this is again important one. Nowadays they do fibroscan, people with chronic alcoholism. They do go get done ultrasonography, and when there is fatty liver or fibrosis, they again undergo fibroscan. So latest trend in such people, such patients. Then PET scan 2, that is positron emission tomography scanning, suffer from the same limitations of limited availability, high cost. So very costly. Test this one. So these are all the imaging modalities. So transient elastography, enhanced liver fibrosis, the fibrosis score, circulating level of cytokeratin 18, all these assays are very much helpful for diagnosis. Lifestyle intervention, so low fatty food consumption, maintaining proper body weight, regular exercise and proper consumption of food. So hypocaloric diet are always good for health. So avoid fructose, especially the juices, high calorie juices, the cokes, the pepsis and all that. Vitamin E consumption is always better. So vitamin E is an antioxidant and has been investigated to treat NASH. The use of vitamin E is associated with a decrease in aminotransferases in subjects with non-alcoholic steatohepatitis. So it causes improvement in steatosis, inflammation and ballooning and resolution of steatohepatitis. It resolves. So vitamin E is the answer in most of the cases here. But once fibrosis is formed, it doesn't affect. Bariatric surgery in obese people to prevent fatty liver diseases. So this also many nowadays are undergoing these bariatric surgeries. But one should be very much careful because people with the diabetic background, hypertensive background are very much susceptible. Recently, one of the leading sandalwood comedian succumbed to such an bariatric surgery. And even you can come across Arun Jaitley, the BJP leader, whose ailments and complication of health just began with a bariatric surgery. So a lot of complications here in this surgery, but if performed successfully, has got a lot of benefit to be taken by the patient. Now moving on to the malignancies of the liver, various tumors. Classification: benign, malignant. So benign tumors, hemangiomas, focal nodular hyperplasias, the adenomas, and the liver cysts. Some of the liver cysts could be seen there, like amoebic liver disease could be there, or the hyatid cyst that can be seen. Malignant: primary liver cancers, hepatocellular carcinomas, fibrolemmal carcinomas, hepatoblastomas, and the metastasis. So metastasis is very important because commonest deposits of any primary malignant tumor in your body is the liver. First and foremost, if there is no mets in the liver in a patient of primary malignancy, then their chances of mets to any other part is very low. So once you rule out mets to liver, you almost invariably rule out mets to any other organ. Such is the commonest site of this particular liver. So primary liver cancer. So we being living in this part of the state should be very aware of liver cancer. It's very common, hepatocellular carcinomas in this part. Why? It could be so many factors. One of the important contributing factor could be excessive groundnut consumption. So what happens due to that? It could be improper, not properly cleaned groundnuts, could lead to any fungally secondary infected with fungal infection of these particular groundnuts. What fungus? Like the toxic substances released by these particular fungus, also the aflatoxins, can cause hepatocellular carcinomas. So any groundnuts which have been stored prolonged with moisture in it are very dangerous to be eaten. So they should be very much kept dried and cleaned and then consumed. So any query, if you have any suspicion of moistness in this particular groundnut stored for longer periods, then it's risky to consume such groundnuts. That could lead to malignancies. Benign liver lesions, hemangiomas. So this is again another important one here. Focal nodular hyperplasias, adenomas, cysts. So hemangiomas, the clinical features: it's a commonest liver tumor, usually single small, well demarcated capsule, usually asymptomatic. So hemangioma diagnosis and management. So we don't go much into that particular details here. So usually FNACs are contraindicated here. So usually it is a more of a radiological diagnosis than the cytological diagnosis or the biopsy diagnosis. Okay, you keep that in mind. So CT scan, MRI are of utmost importance here. See this dilated vascular channels, the septas, the endothelial septas there. These channels having a lot of RBCs, the blood there. Focal nodular hyperplasia. So this is a benign nodule formation of normal liver tissue, central stellate scar. So fibrosis, secondary fibrosis can be seen here. More common in young and middle-aged women. No relation with sex hormones usually. So asymptomatic, may cause minimal pain. So pain could be there. So here there could be portal tracts are absent, variable amount of ductular reaction, mixed inflammatory infiltrates in the fibrous septas. So diagnosis again, the nodule with varying echogenicity, hypervascular mass with central scar. On cytology, normal hepatocytes and Kupffer cells with central core can be seen here. Coming to hepatic adenomas. These are again the benign neoplasm composed of normal hepatocytes, no portal tract, central veins or bile ducts to be seen. More common in young women with contraceptive pills on contraception. So the hormones, the pills rich in hormones, could be a cause, one of the causative factors here. Associated with contraceptive hormones. So right upper quadrant pain may present with rupture, hemorrhage or malignant transformation. So how is the liver here? Pendulous, yellowish bile stained nodules beneath the capsule. So there could be cords of hepatocytes, abundant glycogen. So portal tracts are absent, prominent vessels can be seen here. So this is a diagrammatic representation wherein there is inflammatory hepatocellular adenoma. So there is sinusoidal dilatation and inflammation characteristic of this particular hepatic adenomas. Management on ultrasonography, there could be filling defects. So CT scan, diffuse arterial enhancement, hypo or hyper intense lesions. So FNAC could be needed for the diagnosis here, the cytology studies. So treatment, stop hormone therapies, surgical excision. So liver cysts. So again in the liver, the commonest site it is for the amoebic liver abscess, where you can see the chocolatey fluid, chocolatey cyst. So maybe part of polycystic kidney also diseases. Patients could be asymptomatic, no specific management required here. The hydrated cyst, the Echinococcus granulosus infection here, the squaliasis, the broods of this particular Echinococcus can be seen. The hydrated cyst, FNC is a contraindication here. You can't perform a biopsy or a cytology study in hydrated cyst of the liver. There is Cassoni's reaction, severe anaphylactic reaction that you can come across in a case of hydrated cyst, the cyst fluid being spilled out in other parts. So more it is of a ultrasonographical or the radiological diagnosis than the cytological diagnosis. Polycystic liver disease picture here. Cysts of varying sizes, fibrosis, chronic inflammation, nests of the residual liver. The hydrated cyst, usually on cytology, it presents as a laminated eosinophilic substance, glossy or the glassy laminated structures that you can visualize commonly in a case of hydrated cyst cytology study, if in case you miss out the scoliosis. Malignant liver lesions, important for you when it comes to exam point of view. The hepatomas, the hepatocellular carcinomas, commonly asked one for 5 marks question. So hepatocellular carcinomas, fibrolamellar carcinoma of the liver, hepatoblastomas, cholangiocarcinomas, others. So we'll mainly focus here on the hepatocellular carcinomas and then to some extent fibrolamellar carcinoma of the liver. So coming to hepatocellular carcinomas. So it's the most common primary malignancy of the liver worldwide. It's common in cirrhotic patients. Hepatitis B, the patients with core antigen of hepatitis B infection, and then that particular viral infection infects the liver, then is a gone case, progresses to cirrhosis liver. So if the patient is in a carrier state of hepatitis B, then no issues, no problems. Male to female ratio 4:1. Right lobe is commonly involved, so usually unicentric one. The etiology, hepatitis. So 100 to 200 fold increase. 20% of HCC are positive for HBsAg. Hepatitis C, important finding there. Cirrhosis, 70% of hepatocellular carcinoma arise on top of cirrhosis. Toxins, alcohol, tobacco, aflatoxins, the drugs. So these are the toxins here. So continuous consumption on a daily basis of more than 60 grams of alcohol is a very risky factor here for causing HCC. So various infections also can be seen associated here with Clonarchis senensis infection. So even in the cases of hemochromatosis, alpha-1 antitrypsin deficiency, all these leading to hepatitis, cirrhosis, and even sometimes into the cirrhosis. Clinical features, painless mass in right hypochondriac region with loss of weight and appetite. Jaundice if present is due to hepatic dysfunction, ascites, splenomegaly, features of portal hypertension. There could be hepatic thrill, that is on clinical examination, the bruit. Fever may be present due to tumor necrosis. So GIT bleeding, so that is esophageal varices could be seen there, or even the bleeding per rectum. So that is due to the increased pressure in the portal system. So jaundice, dilated veins, palmar erythema, gynecomastia, testicular atrophy, all are important findings in HCC. Histology, well differentiated, moderately differentiated, poorly differentiated. Grossly classified into hanging type, pushing type, infiltrative types. So it could be unifocal, multifocal, diffusely infiltrative. So all patterns of HCC have increased propensity for vascular invasions. So masses of tumor invade portal veins. Hepatocytes are arranged in trabecular pattern, acinar, pseudoglandular. In poorly differentiated types, cells are anaplastic with giant cells. So you have a big intranuclear holes or inclusions, the intranuclear cytoplasmic glassy eosinophilic inclusions that are hallmark of the histological study, histological findings in a case of hepatomas, hepatocellular carcinomas. Spread of tumors, lymphatic spread. So lymphatic within liver to lymph nodes in porta hepatis and other abdominal lymph nodes. Blood spread to lung, bone, adrenals, direct infiltration to diaphragm and neighboring structures. So what are the variants? Clear cell type, fibrolamellar HCC, sarcomatoid HCC, combined HCC, that is cholangiocarcinomas, sclerosing HCC. So fibrolamellar variant of HCC, that is fibrolamellar carcinoma, a distinctive variant of hepatocellular carcinoma, young male and female adults, 20 to 40 years of age, no association with HBV infection or cirrhosis here, often has a better prognosis, well differentiated polygonal cells growing in nests or cords and separated by parallel lamellae of dense collagen bundles. So that is the hallmark of this particular thing here. So well differentiated polygonal cells in nests and cords. No elevation of alpha fetoproteins here. Tumor marker is vitamin B12 binding proteins. Increase in neurotensin levels. Left lobe commonly involved. Involves lymph node commonly. Fibrous stroma with hyaline band are typical. So the investigations here. Alpha fetoprotein, classical tumor marker in HCC, that is greater than 400 nanogram per ml. So important viva question that you should be aware of, and highlighting word when you write an answer of hepatoma. AFP, alpha fetoproteins. Imaging, USG findings, there is hyperechoic mass, mosaic patterns. So CT scan finding, MRI finding are important here. Biopsy is rarely required for diagnosis. In 1 to 3%, biopsy of potentially operable lesion should be avoided where possible. Metastatic workup is essential. So in some cases, biopsy may be rarely required. Staging. You can see as usual the TNM staging here. Primary tumor cannot be assessed, that is Tx, T0, T1, T2, T3 depending upon the spread. The primary tumor less than 2 centimeter without vascular invasion, solitary less than 2 centimeters with vascular invasion, then solitary that is greater than 2 centimeters with vascular invasion, multiple, one lobe involvement, then T4, then nodal, NX, N0, N1, regional lymph nodes, no regional lymph node metastasis, regional lymph node metastasis. M0, M1, that is metastatic status, distant metastasis is absent, M0, distant metastasis present, M1. Treatment, the only proven potentially curative therapy for HCC, hepatic resection, liver transplantation. Nowadays, multi-specialty hospitals are coming up with the package offers for such patients. Say, for example, give 20 lakhs, 25 lakhs, and we give you a HLA compatible patient who can donate liver or a lobe for you. So, in such people, or a dead patient wherein the liver has been preserved, so HLA compatibility is very much essential here. So hepatic resection should be considered in HCC and a non-cirrhotic liver. So resection can be carried out in highly selected patients with cirrhosis. So resection can also be thought of in such patients. So recurrence rates of 50 to 60% after 5 years. So there could be recurrence rates of 50%. Liver transplantation should be considered in any patient with cirrhosis. So in cirrhotic patients are a good candidate for liver transplantation. Sometimes cirrhosis can progress to hepatomas. So patients with replicating HBV, HCV had a worst outlook due to recurrence and were previously not considered candidates for transplantations. So coming to secondary liver metastasis. So liver is the commonest site for metastatic deposits that one should be aware of. So whenever a person with primary malignancy after chemotherapy, radiotherapy goes for PET scan, one of the important glands that the radiologist puts on, the first organ that he wants to visualize is liver and liver. So their liver is clear, most of these organs are clear. Most of the times, not always, most of the times. More than 60% of the times you can tell, or more than 50% of the times at least. So the most common site for blood-borne metastasis. Common primaries: colon, breast, lung, stomach, pancreas, melanoma. So any primary tumor of these organs can find their metastatic deposits in the liver. So there could be, you can even diagnose this on FNAC cytology studies or imaging studies. So again, treatment depends on the primary cancers. So in case of metastasis from intestinal cancer or neuroendocrine cancer, surgery can offer cures, but in metastasis it is very bleak chance, less chance of a cure, but there could be prolongation of the life with proper, nowadays, good therapies, good chemotherapies and all. You can prolong the life of such patients who have already metastatic deposits at the time of diagnosis of the primary cancers in any part of this body. The earlier the diagnosis in any malignancy, primary malignancies, the better is the prognosis in such patients. So this comes to the end of this session on liver. So what all we saw here, basically the chronic liver inheritable diseases like hemochromatosis, alpha-1 antitrypsin deficiencies, Ray's syndrome, Wilson's disease, and then we followed up with that particular thing with the alcoholic hepatitis, the NASH, non-alcoholic steatohepatitis, the ASH, alcoholic steatohepatitis, and then the non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, NAFLD. So that we saw, and then we moved on to various investigative approach that we can go in for a liver disease diagnosis. And then we saw about the malignancies, commonly the hemangiomas, the various cysts, the hyatid cyst in the liver, the amoebic liver diseases of the liver, or the hepatoblastomas or the hepatic adenomas, the benign, the malignant. In the malignant, important one could be the hepatomas, that hepatocellular carcinomas, the types of that particular hepatocellular carcinomas, and then the treatments, and then finally the metastatic tumors of the liver. So myself, Dr. Rajesh Patil, signing off for this session. See you soon in the next class. Thank you.